Hello and welcome to another Doctor's Assistant 1 video. Today I'm doing a behind the scenes so far to episode 2 of my series of figure adventures, episode 2 being Man. It panned out pretty well actually. This story is a 5-part story instead of the previous one being only a 4-part story, so I've got an extra part to play with, as it were, and do some different things. So yeah, surprisingly enough, this documentation-y thing was supposed to be like psychic paper, basically, so yeah, and if you look closely enough, I've even scribbled on it, so yeah, that's pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of weird, because obviously on the classic series, they never use psychic paper, but yeah, it was always something I really liked in Russell's era, so I just thought, you know what, fuck it, I'll have some psychic paper in my episode, as it were. Bit of a disclaimer, what I will say though about this episode is that even though my friend Michael hasn't of this recording sort of actually officially released episode 1 of his audio series, what I will say is that this one just so happens to be very similar to that, so it'll come across as though I've completely just plagiarized his episode, but to be fair, I had this idea for this sort of story ages ago, and that, so kind of pre his story, but even so, you know, sometimes with Doctor Who stories, or just stories in general, you can't help but sort of, stand on each other's toes a bit, but what I am saying here is that basically, yeah, I have sort of, there are a lot of similar themes. I haven't out and out just copied his story, God forbid, but because that would be plagiarism, but it's very similar in some of the themes and tones and stuff. You know, or well, not even themes and tones, but the core concept is very similar. So yeah, Michael, if you're watching this, sorry about that, I guess, and that. But yeah, hopefully though, that being said, you will enjoy it if he does ever watch this, and that. Part 1, yeah, I think it ran smoothly. It was not as... it wasn't as short an episode as I thought it would be, but it wasn't as long as an episode. It's weird, lately all the episodes that I've been filming have been a lot longer than I've ever done prior, I think. I used to only do like a couple minutes of sorts, anywhere between sort of 5 to 10 minutes figure adventure, and that's about it, but yeah. Yeah, I mean, as you can imagine, the Professor isn't particularly nice, but I think the thing is, what I'm going to try and do with these two main characters is that they have a very complicated and or complex sort of rapport and relationship of sorts, so yeah. And that, so yeah. Gwen, as I say, wanted to know about the future, so this is set in the future, and that I might sort of actually have a bit of dialogue where one of the characters actually says what year and or place it is, so yeah. And this is the first time I ever used the Curator and or Tom Baker figure, which is kind of ironic because again, he is my favourite Doctor, and yet he is a not very nice character in this sort of figure adventure, so yeah. Again, it ran smoothly, and that, I don't know, I think I might have a few more lines about, like, how the Doctor's still getting used to his new body and that, because I feel like, in retrospect, Rebirth very much just glossed over that, and I am kind of annoyed about that in that sort of story, if I'm being completely honest, and I did try and have some sort of scenes where, in the TARDIS, where he explains some stuff, he goes over some things about, like, the TARDIS and, you know, the gateway to, you know, any real sort of possibility, an endless stream of possibilities, which is something that he could have said, but he didn't, I don't think, I don't know. Yeah, and the reason as to why there's that Japan 1835 is just because Japan, apparently in 1835, completely blocked off their borders, so I'm thinking logically the only foreigner who could have ever got in there is probably the Doctor, so, which is kind of funny to think of. Him being there and the Japanese people being like, but we've closed all of his borders, how the hell have you got here? And then there's, I think, do I mention Spiridon? And if I do, I can't remember, but if I do, that's obviously a nod to Planet of the Daleks, a really good Jumper to Dalek story, so yeah. And then, yeah, they've experimented on this guy. Oh no! And I couldn't think of a name, so again, the first name that came to my head was Michael. I'm not very good with names, nor title names either. A lot of my title names are very crap, I'll be honest. But yeah, hopefully a lot of my characters and some of my ideas are a bit better. But yeah, I mean, the only way I'd know that is if you comment below what your thoughts are of any of these mentions, even though they're kind of really cheesy and crap. But in that respect, I think that's why I love the classic series because of Doctor Who. Because although there's not a lot of obviously technical skill there, if you can make something out of nothing and that, then you know surely you kind of creative, you know, and that. And at the end of the day, I do these for fun. And at the end of the day, I think this YouTube channel has inspired some people maybe to at least consider sort of being a bit more creative, or just being a bit more sort of willing to take a risk, maybe even, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it, it was fun. And that the reason as to why these two are flopping around on the floor like fish is because the floor has been well, actually I'll explain what the cliffhanger is in the next part, even though the cliffhanger shouldn't have to be explained in the next part. But I don't think the cliffhanger was as good as it could have been, or in terms of how it could have been explained anyway. But yeah, yeah, it was a decent part. It was very fluid in that. What I am interested in knowing and or seeing myself, so please do comment below if you have seen sort of Rebirth Part 4. Does this flow nicely? Like, is there a nice flow between that Rebirth Part 4 and this episode, Man Part 1, and that of Man, and that? So yeah, yeah, I mean, it's a decent story, I think. I mean, it's not perfect, but what story is? But yeah, I think I'm a lot more proud of this than I was of Rebirth Part 4, to say the least, and that. But I think this one's, surprisingly enough, a bit less, like, a bit smaller in scale and that, whereas with Rebirth, I think I'd had that idea, as I said before, in maybe one of the behind the scenes so far of that. I've had that idea for ages, pretty much since I first saw the Slitheen two-parter, because I've always been under the assumption that you could really do not a sequel to that, but a prequel would be really good, because again, they do mention, the Slitheen do mention that they were, you know, somewhere else on the planet Earth before they were in that story. So in my head, Rebirth is set before that two-parter, and that's kind of why the Doctor's mind gets wiped, because obviously if he remembered that experience, then it'd fuck up the continuity in the actual TV show if he then did actually meet them again in Series 1 of the new series, because then he'd just be like, oh yeah, I remember you guys, and I remember the fact that you'd said that you were going to turn the Earth into a cinder and do all that. But yeah, yeah, I mean, I enjoyed filming it, and I enjoyed using the new figure. I don't think I've used the Sarah Jane figure either, which is weird, because again, yeah, she really works as the character that I'm using as well. I could imagine this figure and or person type character being a university grad student. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the head sculpt of Elizabeth Sladen and all the clothes as well, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, yeah, as I say, they don't have a great rapport, as you can imagine, or as you might know if you've watched Man Part 1. But yeah, thanks for watching, comment, rate and subscribe.